It's first day, first show of the second leg of the budget session. It was indeed full of fireworks galore, with the opposition, mainly the Congress, training its guns on the government over the imposition of President's rule in Uttarakhand, and of course the twin affidavit theory giving a huge ammunition to the BJP. The Prime Minister, of course, said that he was hopeful the member of all parties will discuss issues in democratic spirit and the session will indeed be fruitful. Remember, the government has listed a heavy agenda for this session, passage of 13 bills in the Lok Sabha and about 11 in the Rajya Sabha. What are the distractions and what is the impact of all of that is going to be on the parliamentary proceedings and more importantly on Indian economy and you and I is exactly what we're going to discuss over the next 30 minutes with a very esteemed panel here. For that, we've got Nalan Kohli representing the Treasury benches from the BJP, Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Congress Party, and of course Pawan Verma of the JDU. Thanks very much each one of you for being with us, and we must begin by first talking to you about the session and the political realities outside. Nalan Kohli, because you come from the Treasury benches, you have the advantage to go first. How different or how difficult is this Parliament session going to be, given all that's happening outside of the session, really?
I think we have been seeing multiple Parliament sessions that have been influenced by political issues that are happening outside Parliament, obviously. Political parties are not divorced from those developments. Some of them may also have a link with them. However, in the larger interest of Parliament, I have found that it would be unfair to look back at the Parliament session so far and immediately say that there have been complete washouts. That's not true. Because despite this, work has been done in terms of some of the houses. In the lower house, I think it was 122% in the last session. Pawan Verma ji might be able to give the exact figures. He's a parliamentarian. The Rajya Sabha has also transacted business. Primarily, problems have been in the Rajya Sabha. Primarily, problems have been in the Rajya Sabha because that's where the Treasury benches, as you say, don't have a majority, and that's a known fact. So I think what we need to see is how do we arrive at that. Our government has been consistently saying we can discuss everything. There's no problem about discussing. It has to be as per rules. And whatever behavior we see thereafter, that is for individual parties to reflect how it brings glory to the House or whether it does not.
All right, so glory or disgrace seems to be the point of contention that Mr. Kohli is making out there. Priyanka Chaturvedi, who represent the main opposition, the Congress Party there, the government is willing to discuss, debate, and of course build a consensus. Is the Congress willing to play ball, given, like I said, everything that's happening outside of Parliament?
It's very interesting that they put the blame on the doors of the opposition. It definitely becomes the responsibility of the government of the day to ensure that the Parliament rests in glory or disgrace. That is something that needs to be coming from the government of the day. Having said that, if we see the past sessions and the reason why many sessions got disrupted and many days were lost were because you had an obstinate government in power which refuses to debate, which refuses to discuss. Even today, they wanted to discuss on issues which were suitable to them and were sub judice, but as soon as we raise issues on Uttarakhand, they call it a sub judice matter. So this is how this government has been functioning, inside the Parliament and outside it. Majority in the upper house or lower house does not mean that you have an authoritative attitude to anything that concerns the nation at large. There are issues that are going to be discussed, and issues will not be on the basis of what you would like to hear. The issues would be on the basis of what people would want to know and would want to understand on the developments that are happening on a daily basis. So Parliament is one place where all this can be discussed, debated, but unfortunately this government hasn't really cooperated, and we've seen why some sessions were washed out, and last session was pretty productive, and even now we see a session continuing. But you cannot ignore the issues of the day and issues that matter, whether it is drought, whether it is what Supreme Court has been talking, whether the High Court has taken a decision on Uttarakhand issue. So there are many such issues that are pending and need to be discussed in a fair and authoritative manner and in a democratic debate where even the opposition gets an equal chance to speak what they feel like or what they have to say or raise issues or concerns that matter to the nation.
Fair point indeed. The opposition wants a chance to speak. The government believes the opposition is not playing ball, not building consensus. Let's get in a neutral voice away from the Congress and the BJP. Of course, a very, very active politician in his own right. Mr. Pawan Verma, I'm presuming you're going to be a lot more candid. Do we expect any amount of work to happen, in budget session, the second leg? Because look at what's happening outside. Look at the ammunition both the BJP and the Congress have. Whether it's the Ishrat Jahan dual affidavit, whether it's the Uttarakhand crisis, whether it's Vidarbha, whether it's what's happening in the High Court. There are many, many distractions outside. I'm going to talk to you about all of that in just a bit. Are we realistic in our expectations to expect Parliament to function?
I think that, I'm sorry to repeat a cliche, but the primary responsibility to run the House is that of the Treasury benches. Now let me make 2 points here. First of all, this session is short. I think there are about 12 or 13 or 14 working days. Why is it so short? In fact, on the last session, we were asking for the session to be extended if possible, and in fact for more work to be done. But that's another matter. And I also want to add my voice to that of Nalin Kohli, that it's not that all sessions have been a washout. There has been a lot of work done, but I want to make 2 important points. The first is that if work has been done, I believe it's in spite of the Treasury benches. Supriya, we have rarely seen a government in power which has such a poor outreach to the opposition in terms of building consensus on important bills which are good for the government. And in this, I can cite to you the GST. Please ask whether in the intercession period between the last part of this budget session and now, has there been any attempt made by the government to reach out to the opposition in order to overarch the 2 or 3 differences that remain? The outreach is completely either negligible or certainly inadequate. And the manner in which the attempt is being made in an organized way to denigrate the Rajya Sabha, which is a considered aspect of what constitutes Parliament. I meant to say that it's the tyranny of the unelected because the BJP is in a minority there. Or to say that, to categorize bills as money bills in order to take away or dilute the legislative authority of the Rajya Sabha. These are such transparently unacceptable means of running Parliament. How do they expect an opposition to cooperate, especially when they have no outreach to it? So I am trying to say to you,
so
this session is short. Now, yes,
right.
Please.
Just hold your thoughts there, because I'm tempted to go straight to the GST, but I will in just a while, because my question is really coming to both Ms. Chaturvedi and Mr. Kohli, because you look at the distractions outside of Parliament, and I named a few of them when I was questioning Mr. Verma there. I'm not going to get into the merits of the case as far as the Ishrat Jahan is concerned, or even the Uttarakhand High Court and subsequently the Supreme Court order is concerned. But Mr. Kohli, do you expect and are you going to expect a very acrimonious relationship with the Congress on Uttarakhand? Let's be realistic and give me a yes and a no.
I want to first come into a point that both Ms. Chaturvedi and Pawan Bhai both have raised it, about the primary responsibility being with the government. Of course, nobody is running away from that. That is a factual position, that is a stated position, and that's how it's meant to be. However, to say that the opposition has no responsibility in running the House is also contrary to how it should be, because everyone who gets elected comes to represent people, whether in their region or as a party, and when they are in Parliament, they have a responsibility to the nation. And that's why I celebrate. It doesn't matter if the opposition is happy with, as Mr. Verma says, it is in spite of the government. As long as work is getting done, it benefits Indians, and that's exactly what Government of India is there for, and that's also what the opposition is for. Nobody can say we are going to spite India's benefit, whether it's economic or otherwise, because we don't agree with the government of the day. You don't spite India. You can spite the BJP and you can spite anyone else because that's a political ground. But you can't spite India. That's the point I want to make. With regard to Uttarakhand, in terms of it, of course, how can the Congress celebrate a situation that we have a strong view on? And Article 356 has been imposed on the appropriation bill issue. Now the matter is before the Honorable Supreme Court. It will get adjudicated eventually. So there's no point in getting into the merits and demerits in a discussion that's not directly in it. I'm happy to do so because I'm also in the case. So I'm well acquainted with the facts, but I don't know whether you would like to get into a debate on Uttarakhand per se.
Yes, absolutely. We will not, because it's a sub judice matter and we will give it the respect. But Priyanka Chaturvedi, is the Congress willing to stake time, and is the Congress willing to waste time in Parliament because of Uttarakhand outside in the courts? Why is it a talking point today?
I'm very surprised that you call it, no, I'm very surprised that you all call it wasting time in democracy when a Prime Minister talks about cooperative federalism and behaves totally otherwise, contrary to what he's speaking. And it is coming from the central government. President's rule, which was challenged by the High Court, is also something which the government of the day needs to talk about and address to the nation. Having said that, let's also not forget how they were trying to scrap the entire session of this particular session just because they did not want to talk on Uttarakhand. Let's also not forget, you know, we've had many hours of washout during UPA's tenure when Bharatiya Janata Party used to talk about wanting to discuss CAG reports, which we kept saying, yes, we want to discuss this. We wish to discuss the CAG reports with regards to GSPC, a huge corruption which is being hidden and not being spoken about. Yet you have a government which refuses to discuss that. So yes, it becomes the responsibility of the government of the day. I would want to repeat that. And let me also remind Mr. Kohli, this is not about spiting India. This is also making the country aware that there are many such issues which need to be addressed and addressed by the government of the day, which the government refuses to do. So as a responsible opposition, it becomes our responsibility to talk about the CAG report on Gujarat. It becomes our responsibility to talk about GSPC and how 19,800 crores of scam has been unearthed yet not being discussed. So these are issues which concern the nation and need to be discussed, and I think the government should be open to this kind of a discussion, considering when they were in opposition they used to keep blocking the parliament on these very issues.
Mr. Verma, I know you had a finger up. You want to come in on that?
Yes, certainly I was a little surprised, Supriya. I'm sure it's well-meaning and your question is well-intentioned. I was a little bit surprised by the choice of words you used in asking the question. That are you going to waste time in discussing Uttarakhand? What do you think Parliament is about? Is Parliament about the opposition rubber stamping bills brought in by the government without taking into account any other issues which directly impact the well-being of democracy and the rights of citizens? I'm sorry, we don't look at it purely from the prism of the interests of a few economic analysts. Parliament is a forum that represents what constitutes the democratic spirit. And what happened today in Parliament? I think business can be done if this government is willing. When Uttarakhand was raised, the leader of the House said that it's sub judice. We were amazed. Throughout, not this session but previous sessions, the BJP, when in opposition, stalled Parliament for days on end on matters which were before the court, because saying that Parliament is supreme and can discuss them. And today when we raised them, they refused for the discussion. They refused the response on the specious plea that it is sub judice. What does it mean? Do they want business to be done, or is it tokenism? We have passed bills. I can say to you personally, I have been on select committees of bills on which I had reservations. The insurance bill, the mines and minerals bill. But in a spirit of cooperation for the overall good of the country, we have passed bills. But I ask you again that question, what is the outreach on GST? In fact, I want to make a public accusation through your television. This government is not interested in passing the GST bill. So I am saying,
you've said that time and again. There is a conspiracy theory that you voiced. Right. You know, Mr. Verma, I think you've arrived at the point of, yes, you have. Yes, you have, and which is why I'm going to now shift my focus and attention away from the contentious issues. And when I raised Uttarakhand, what I meant by wasting time is, why is it a talking point when it's already in the courts? And will a lot of important legislation, I will get you in, Mr. Kohli, but I am going to get you in on the question that Mr. Verma has raised. Where is the outreach for important legislation? The finance minister has been in the US crisscrossing different cities and saying that he is hopeful the GST will go through the second leg of the budget session. Where is the outreach? Who have you reached out to? Have you been speaking to the Congress and other important stakeholders, or do you believe the bill will get passed on its own?
Actually, this question also links to something I wanted to say in the preceding segment, and let's talk about it. The outreach has to be on matters that are coherent and important to the bill, or is the outreach to be in terms of massaging egos? There's a big difference between the two. The outreach has to be on, there are points that the Congress would have, other parties would have, on issues. They can't be about how leaders like each other or do not like each other, and what leaders may perceive to be their own positioning of how they would like to project themselves to the country. I think we need to understand there's a big difference between that. On principles, no less than Mr. Jaitley, as the finance minister, is saying, a lot of ground has been covered. Obviously, if he's saying that, he's not saying it because he's there to sing a song. He's saying it as the responsible finance minister of the country, that process must be on through parliament, through the various parties. The Congress had some issues, 3 of them very specifically, that Mr. Rahul Gandhi, others have raised. The BJP has also responded by the end of this session, in the last, before we went for the break. In that also it was pointed that a lot of ground has been achieved. Which brings me to what I wanted to say in the preceding section. That if a party, say the Congress, wants to interact and get their issue across to the people of India, is halting parliament their only means? Does that mean their leaders or do not command the space to be able to directly speak to leaders, to people across the country?
Well,
because that's what political parties are meant to do. Communicate with the people. But is it at the way of halting parliament? Right. Is that the only way of communication? And if the BJP was guilty of this, as the Congress always reminds us,
right,
so do they prefer to be guilty of that? So we say we are guilty of having a nationalist vision for India. So maybe they should take that on fully. Have the nationalist vision of the BJP. That ends the problem.
All right, Mr. Kohli, you raised a point and you made Priyanka Chaturvedi and Pawan Verma both smile a lot. So I'm going to throw the question to Priyanka Chaturvedi first. But Priyanka, I have a more pointed question. But Priyanka, I have a more pointed question to you, and the pointed question is...
No, a couple of things.
Absolutely, and which is why I have a pointed question for you. My question is, will you let the GST go through if the ground is covered with all these issues remaining outside of Parliament?
That. You may have to repeat it.
No, I would want to understand from Mr. Jaitley, when he goes to US... Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought the question was to me.
Go ahead, Priyanka, we can hear you. Priyanka, we can hear you, you can go ahead.
Okay, no, I thought Nalin wanted to answer that question. Let's now hear, you have Mr. Jaitley, the finance minister of this nation, who talks about talks reaching a conclusive point, etc. We have raised 3 issues. This has nothing to do with personality. I know Bharatiya Janata Party is very personality driven and everything moves around Mr. Narendra Modi and his whims and fancies. But we have raised certain issues. Even when we had a meeting with the finance minister and the prime minister, we had raised these 3 issues. Nothing has been done on it. And when Mr. Verma talks about outreach, outreach is when you address these issues. Nothing is being done. No concerns are being addressed. Yet you have an obstinate Bharatiya Janata Party who keeps pinning the blame on the opposition, which is extremely unfortunate. Having said that, I'm very surprised that today he talks about a nationalist point of view of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Bharatiya Janata Party's prism of nationalism has been reduced to only Bharat Mata Ki Jai, and as far as other issues are concerned, they have been totally ignoring them. My third point to make to Nalin today is, Nalin, very surprising that you say that we want to continue what you all left for us as opposition, what you taught to us. You had Mr. Jaitley himself who said disruption is also part of democracy. So when you do it, it becomes a part of democracy. And when we do it, and especially we do it because you do not allow us a space to dissent, discuss, debate. So you call it an anti-national move, which is extremely unfortunate. Any democracy thrives on discussion, dissent and debate, which you all are not allowing, not just inside the parliament, but all across the nation. And yes, we are talking to people directly. We are not indulging in monkey bars, where only one person is talking, the rest are listening. We are listening to the people, and we are trying to make our point of view across and put our views across inside the parliament, which you all are just not allowing.
Right. Priyanka Chaturvedi has made a point. I know Nalin Kohli wants to come in. Yes, Mr. Kohli. Mr. Kohli, I will just come to you in a minute from now, but I want to ask Pawan Verma the question that I've been wanting to ask before we began this show. Mr. Verma, because you're somebody who's had this theory that the BJP doesn't want the GST to go through, and because my viewers are very important stakeholders in the GST bill, let me ask you, is India going to see a GST in the Narendra Modi government?
I wish we do see the bill, because at least my party, and I know there's a near national consensus on it, we support the GST bill. But if the BJP government was keen on the GST bill, its attempt to has it passed has been an inverse proportion to their desire to see it actually become a reality. I ask you, if you are in support of a bill, will you make an attempt to reach a consensus? That consensus is reachable. The 3 issues can find a solution. apart from that invitation to tea to Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and Dr. Manmohan Singh, I want to ask today Nalin Kohli, and I want him to give an honest answer. What was the follow-up? What is the structured discussion the BJP is willing to have between sessions? There is no investment in time or effort to get a bill which can be passed, which is a good bill. And I say there are reasons for it. In my view, the BJP wants the non-passing of the GST bill to be an alibi in order to deflect all criticism of their completely deplorable handling of the economy so far. And I want to say also that they believe that the dividends from the GST bill will kick in 2 or 3 years' time, by which when we will have the 2019 elections. And they don't want the period of pain that will intervene in between. And so they are not interested in passing the GST bill, because if they were,
Right.
we would have seen evidence of their attempt to try and get the consensus to pass it. Where is that evidence?
Okay. So it's time we pass the baton on to Nalin Kohli to answer all of those questions. Where is the attempt that has been made, Mr. Kohli? And let's not get involved with personalities here. Where is the attempt that has been made? And is there a conscious strategy to keep GST out of the fray right now? Because there is going to be imminent short-term pain.
I have 4 points to make, and very simply, without elaborating, I think it's going to be self-explanatory. Let us take Mr. Pawan Verma's assertion about the BJP not being serious on GST to be true. Assume it to be true. Therefore, he believes that it will not bring the BJP enough political mileage. As a legitimate opposition party, does he want to see the BJP succeed in its objective, or would he like to prevent it? So if you feel the BJP doesn't want it, why don't you all unite and go ahead and push for getting it passed? So that you can defeat this kind of theory that you have, that the BJP doesn't want it, so the BJP would be forced to do it. I think that's a very strange, convoluted argument. I'm not in consonance with that, because the corollary would point a very funny finger at the JDU. It'll be impossible to believe that there is an argument. That's a theory. I don't think it is founded by anything beyond that. So Pawan bhai, that one is out of fiction. The second one is on what Ms. Priyanka Chaturvedi is saying. 3 points she raised, and I'll answer each one of them. She says, let us... Pawan bhai, I made my point. I think that's a route that I really wouldn't like to, because the BJP would like to. We've been wanting it. Anyway, let me now come to what Ms. Chaturvedi said. Ms. Chaturvedi said, we'd like to debate. I'll remind you of a debate in the last session of Parliament. Mr. Rahul Gandhi spoke. The BJP and the Treasury benches listened. When Ms. Sushma Swaraj spoke, it was shocking, painful, absolutely shocking and painful to see how the Congress behaved. They were sloganeering. They didn't have the decency to listen to that debate. It's part of parliamentary records. It's not me speaking. The country saw it. You can play those clips anytime. A discussion or a debate on the floor of the House is an opportunity to say what you want, and when you get a response, to listen to that too. Because that's what makes a debate. Let the people decide. Of course, there have been other debates where both sides have heard each other. But I'm also pointing out an example where it hasn't happened. Then Ms. Chaturvedi was going on the issue that we are not reaching out. My point remains the same, that invitations, whether it was Dr. Manmohan Singh and Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, obviously that is at the highest level. Thereafter, there is a daily mechanism where people meet. Parliament is not as if you don't bump into people. A lot of work is transacted in terms of just short conversations. It's not driven by an agenda, that you form an agenda, you do an agenda. And I think anyone who's been in Parliament, I haven't, but as I gather from my colleagues who are in Parliament, that's a normal way also of interacting. Mr. Verma has been long enough. I think a lot of things informally gets done too. There are mechanisms in terms of select committee, in terms of the standing committee, where formally the people of different parties also interact.
I don't know if you can let the GST pass by talking to each other in the corridors of power, Mr. Kohli, but I'm sorry, gentlemen, and Ms. Chaturvedi, I've completely run out of time here. I will have to end this show right now, because this is a fascinating debate.
How can it be passed in the
corridors of power if you are serious about GST?
All right, this is not the way they are serious about the GST, is the voice coming in from the opposition. The government and the Treasury benches believe enough outreach has happened. What is the fate of that bill going to be? Only Indian politics will decide, and we do hope it's going to be a step in the right direction, both from the opposition and the Treasury benches. We really thank Mr. Pawan Verma, Mr. Nalin Kohli and Ms. Priyanka Chaturvedi for being with us right here on NIT Now.
Thank you.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/etnow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at etnowlive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/etnow.